Yeah. Off-brand Tarzan, call me George. Get lost in green eyes and gorgeous. Us, just me and you in the jungle, baby.
Dave and Friends has never been shy about experimenting with their sound. In fact, I would say that's part of their charm. You never know exactly what the next project is going to sound like. For example, their first release, Mid-Wild West, was a very bouncy and fun and energetic, mixed in with some sarcastic delivery. It was a garage rock sound. Earlier in 2020, they released a song that wouldn't sound out of place in a club in Dusseldorf. And then their most recent release, prior to this record, was Don't Matter to Me, which is almost a country bop. So when they announced that they were going to release some new music, I was excited because I had no idea what direction they were planning on going in. The Bad I've Done is a 3-track EP ranging from dreamy R&B to folk to some of that good old classic indie rock that they've really become synonymous with. And I think on this specific release, there is going to be at least one sound that they touch on that you're able to really vibe with. So let's take a look. The EP opens with Little Slice, where we see Dave switch up his vocal technique. He shifts between rapping in sort of a monotone style in the verses to lightly crooning the lyrics "My Little Slice of Paradise" during the choruses. All of this is soaked in sweet layers of reverb and tasteful yet this artistic use of autotune. The keys also really get a chance to shine on this track, and they work well supporting the vocals, but yet they're distinct enough to where there's some memorable moments within it. The track feels light and airy with a sweet disposition that just coats the whole song. Or at least that is until the last line, quote, "But I roll snake eyes every time." And that's where the band sneaks in a little dash of doubt. That melancholic ending leads smoothly into the title track, The Bad I've Done, a mostly acoustic track that sees David be arguably the most vulnerable he's ever been as a musician. Steeped in these layers of self-loathing, doubt, shame, and even contemplations of his own mortality. It's a song that, while deeply personal, at least I imagine for him to perform and write and share with people, it was a song that I felt like I could relate to a lot myself. For example, I'm a smoker, I'm a sinner, and ultimately I'm someone who often questions whether the love they have in their life is deserved. Yeah, at times it felt like the song was a little bit of an inner monologue that I would have with myself. And I know I'm probably not alone in that feeling. The final song, Room at the Table, sees the band introduce a lighter tone to end the album. Make no mistake, however, this is a song with a message. A lot of the lyrics are critiquing problems that are present today in the modern church, specifically, I would argue, the modern American church. In the song, Dave and Friends addresses many of these issues. They're calling out racism, hatred, hypocrisy, amongst other things. And if, they had just left it at that, it would have been fine enough. I think it could have come across a bit preachy, but that's just, my own personal taste. However, the band does something really interesting in one of the final verses. They decide to make the decision to point the finger back at themselves. And I quote, "Before God wiped my butt, it was a crapshoot. I was a monkey chucking pieces of my own poop. Jesus Christ baptized me with a swirly. He screwed my head on straight and flushed away the worldly." And I think that was the direction I was happy to see the band take. After all, at the end of the day, if you just subscribe to the Christian faith, you believe that we all are sinners. No matter what your sin is, we all mess up, we all make mistakes, we all sin. We all have hatred in our hearts, whether we like to admit it or not. Ultimately, it's a really powerful message. there's room at the table for all of us sinners. We all are imperfect, and we don't really deserve God's love. But as the sample from a sermon by Judah Smith says, Jesus is enough. One thing I must praise the EP for is its structure and its sequencing. There is a clear linear thought throughout all these tracks. There's three ways that I've interpreted this narrative. The first is there's these cycles of love, going from in love to doubting of love and ultimately the acceptance of love. Secondly, where is the love being aimed at in the song? Who's the subject receiving the love? In the first song, it's aimed towards another person. In the second song, it could be either about that same person from the first track, or it could be towards God, a message saying, I feel like I don't deserve this love. In the last track, it's cool, there's an inversion. It's about God's love towards us. And the last sort of way I was able to interpret this album was with the way love is expressed. The first one, it's very outwardly. The focus is an outward focus. The second one, the focus is much more inward, that sort of inward questioning. And then the third one, it goes back to that outward focus. What's brilliant about the way these thematic narratives are structured and presented is that they work simultaneously with and against each other. They contrast yet are extremely connected with each other, and I think that's just good songwriting. Another place that the album shines is lyrically. You know, Dave has always had a way of delivering his lyrics where it feels like he's giving a coy smile, like a little bit of a wink and a nod. There's a certain playfulness, a certain cheekiness to the way he delivers his lyrics. And, you know, the album has plenty of those moments. This quality of lyricism and delivery really help contrast some of the heavier subjects that are tackled on this record. At the same time, the lyrics can also be extremely real and honest. They can wrench your heart and make you think about your own life. What they all have in common, however, is that they really work. And they are extremely quotable. Some of my favorite examples include, I love you so much, and I know you love me, because when I kissed you, your Apple Watch told you to breathe. Subtract 10 minutes per cigarette. Each one leads closer to my death, but is it worth the extra days? Believers talk and they judge all around me, then preach to love thy neighbor. Iron sharpens irony. And then, Jesus was never white or American. The Goodwill painting is a bad comparison. Looking at this EP from a production standpoint or from a musician standpoint, Dave and friends still managed to keep some of the things that make them them, sort of that DIY bedroom aesthetic, but they managed to still keep things very interesting. The majority of the drums and percussion conjure images of this dusty Casio drum machine that you would find in your grandfather's attic, but it's like in a super nostalgic way. On a project full of really neat rhythms and beats, however, for me it's the snare and cymbal work in the second song, The Bad I've Done, that I found myself liking the most. It pushes the latter half of that song towards almost a anthemic climactic peak. Speaking of the rhythm section, the bass line in Little Slice is probably one of my favorite sleeper moments of the album, and I think it does a really great job supporting the rest of the instruments throughout. The guitar work is very solid as usual. I like that there's the mix between acoustic guitar and electric guitar, as well just in general, the mixture and blending of acoustic instruments and electronic instruments. I think that's a neat aspect to their sound. I mentioned the work of the synths and the keys earlier, and it sort of has that trademark poppiness and bounce to it. But I'd be particularly remiss if I didn't mention the strings that are present on the record, in particular on the second track, and then you can also hear it towards the end on Room at the Table. So, how does The Bad I've Done stack up against the rest of the band's discography? If I'm being honest, I think it's probably my favorite project they've put out. I can't stress how catchy some of these songs are and some of these lyrics. It's a relatively short record, so I've been able to listen to it a whole lot. It has a immense replayability factor to it. Little Slice is probably my favorite song that the band's ever released, and I was very glad to see that it got the music video treatment. The Bad I've Done is the band at their most raw and open, and Room at the Table sees the band go into different directions with their lyrics. If I'm not mistaken, this is the first time they've tackled religion as a subject in their lyrics. Overall, great job, boys. Now what's next? If you like what you've heard of Dave and Friends, don't be afraid to give them a follow on Instagram, subscribe to their channel on YouTube, give them a follow on Spotify. And if this is your first time coming across my page or my channel, welcome. I hope you stay a while. I actually make music myself. Still kind of learning right now, but I got some tracks that are coming out sometime that I'm pretty excited about, and I think I got some good songs cooking up. And yeah, don't be afraid to send me a DM, send the boys a DM, let me know if you liked the review, if you liked the music, and if you want to kind of see more of this sort of thing. This is a bit of an experiment for me. Anyway, God bless.